Hey guys, today we're going to talk about Paul Reed Smith guitars, SE versus American, and kind of like the American versus Mexican video and the Epiphone versus Gibson, I'm going to base this information on the same things I base those information. Being to the factory, like in here, visiting the factory, learning about Paul Reed Smith guitars. Here's one of my favorite ones. This is one of the factory making pickups. They make their own pickups. Here's a picture of the view from my hotel there. That was awesome. Just thought I'd show you that one. So again, we'll just get into it and kind of compare what makes a Korean Paul Reed Smith, or PRS I should say, different than an American Paul Reed Smith. Alright, let's get to it. Start with the American Core Series. Okay, so American Core Series are made in Maryland in the United States. And this is a Custom 24, and we're going to do Custom 24 against Custom 24 SE. So, let's start with what some of the big differences in the two guitars are. Now, both are going to have a mahogany body. Let's grab the other one, actually. That may make things a little simpler. Both are going to have a mahogany body. However, the American Core Series is going to have a one-piece of mahogany, and the SEs will have a 2- or 3-piece body. In fact, I'm just counting right now, looking to see. Oh, it's pretty good, actually. Look at that. I'm going to say 2. Oh, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 pieces on this one. Okay, so different pieces of mahogany. Does that matter? Nope, doesn't affect sound. Next, both are mahogany again, but the American Core Series is going to come with choices. You'll get the wide fat neck, or should I just say pattern regular, or pattern thin. In other words, you can make a little slightly thicker neck or thinner neck. On the Korean-made SE Custom 24, you will only get the thin neck, and you would have to go to like the SE 245 on the SE line to get the thicker neck. So, what we're doing 24 to 24. So, next, this is one piece of quarter sawn mahogany. Now, when I say one piece, keep in mind that these little tips right here on the end are added on. These little are glued on, these little tips. You can even probably see in the light, maybe the little line that's there. But other than that is a 2-inch by 4-inch block of quarter sawn mahogany that's to make the neck out of. This will have 3 pieces. This block right here, this thick piece right here, this piece is glued on to make this look thicker. And then, of course, up at some point, there's a scarf joint in there gluing that on. Is that a quality difference? Not yet. We haven't got to the quality differences yet. So, nope, I'd say they're on par so far. Fret wire. Now, the fret wire on the American ones is actually ordered from the same place that most companies in the U.S. buy their fret wire from. However, Paul Reed Smith specifically asked for the second hardest nickel wire they have because they felt the hardest one sounded a little different. So his fret wire should last about 5 to 10 times longer than the standard fret wire used on the Korean models. Now, again, that's not a huge deal, especially if you're not playing all the time. So, not a big deal. Okay. But nuts, they are about the same. Now, Paul Reed Smith uses a special one on his American line. It is a graphite, but I think it's got ground glass and stuff in it. It's a composite of materials, where this is just using a hard plastic nut that really is kind of graphite, but I don't think it officially is listed as graphite. I think it's a graphite composite of some sort. In other words, there's graphite probably impregnated into the plastic. When it comes to graphite parts, you gotta understand there's a percentage of graphite that they put in there. Some are solid pieces of it and they sound like glass when they hit the counter, and some are plastic with it in there, melted in there. So again, there's a difference. Now, pickups. Obviously, the pickups in the SEs are made by G&B, an amazing manufacturer of pickups. They are known for making great pickups overseas. And these are clones of the Paul Reed Smith SC245 pickups. He did what a lot of manufacturers do. They shipped some pickups over to Korea and said, copy those. And they did, and they made a great pickup. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, there's probably a little bit of like that Chinese hocus pocus going on in the metals. In other words, they probably diluted the copper and stuff. But, you know, overall, still a good sounding pickup without any doubt. His pickup frames on the SEs are standard pickup frames that you can buy anywhere. However, on the Americans, his pickup frames are custom made in his facility. They are rounded over, and they also have recessed the screws so that the screws do not rub your hand in any way when touching. These have the round bottoms, but the new ones have the squabbins, or the square bobbins. My other PRS has the square bobbins. And his pickups are, of course, made in his factory under his controls, all using the best materials. Now, the bridges is where the guitars start getting pretty different pretty fast. These are solid brass blocks on an aluminum machined out plate. So all real deal. This is a clone of that bridge, however, using a cheaper pot metal type metal for the blocks, and of course a cast bridge. Not low quality by any means, but not the same quality for sure in the cost of it and the manufacturing. So, knobs, funny enough, aftermarket straightforward knobs you can get anywhere. His are what they call bell-shaped knobs that he has made inject molded himself, including his switch chip, which is unique to him. Those are cosmetic treatments. They may or may not matter to you. However, they are some of the elements that give a PRS its look. Now, in electronics, definitely different. This is all Alpha electronics, which, as you guys know, I'm not really a big fan of. However, these are Bourne's potentiometers made in the USA with switchcraft, switch and switchcraft input jack, also made in the USA. Now, the end cap is the standard football barrel or football plate that is made out of, you know, whatever the heck that is, probably a piece of steel, and then chrome, which is no big deal. Of course, Paul Reed Smith takes the extra mile on his with a machined piece of aluminum that is bent and fit to his will. And again, both cool, but in the end game, quality-wise, one jack will not wear out before the other when it comes to the plate. The input jack itself, again, this is a cheap Alpha input jack. It will break down within a few years. This should take you 10 to 20 years to kill this switchcraft input jack. Again, if you notice an overwhelming theme with his guitars, he's building you longevity. He's building one guitar to basically say this will last night after night of nightly abuse, which is why the SEs are very important to most musicians. If you're not gigging out on a weekly basis, the SE could last just as long, if not longer, than a core American guitar. Now, where do the expenses start changing is really simple. First of all, this guitar has a 1/2 inch thick of maple cap. Now, it's actually what they do, and this is important to kind of visually see this. The 1/2 inch cap is about this thick of maple. They cut it at an angle and then flip the boards over, so it like makes a mini pyramid, right? So a mini pyramid, and then that way when the CNC cuts it, they don't have to just sit there and cut out so much of that wood, right? They get a better use of the piece of maple they're using. So this is, again, a solid piece of flamed maple. Now this guitar uses a 1/4 inch piece of real maple on the right, just like on the Epiphones would, but then they veneer on the flame maple, which is paper thin, again having almost no sound issues or quality issues there, just obviously doesn't have the cost of using a solid piece of flame maple. So again, it's a cost issue. Now, tuning keys, they use, PRS SE uses Ping. Ping is one of the largest manufacturers of tuning keys, parts, and whatnot. Obviously, you might know them from their golf clubs. They actually make anything that's pretty much carbon fiber, not carbon fiber, and graphite. They make graphite as well. They're a big machine shop. They make parts and they make carbon fiber rods and stuff. Okay, so where Paul Reed Smith uses his new aluminum keys that are open geared that he had designed and made that lock. Just a higher quality key, feels a little better, is a little better, without a doubt about that. So now here's the biggest thing that people really don't notice. The first thing they don't notice is this guitar actually is a Paul Reed Smith. It says Paul Reed Smith. This guitar is not a Paul Reed Smith. An SE is not a Paul Reed Smith. Nowhere on the SE does it say Paul Reed Smith. On the truss plate, and only on the truss plate, it says PRS. On the headstock, it says SE, which is widely understood to mean Student Edition. On the back of the guitar, to show his credibility, he actually wants you to know that even though he didn't build this, he did pick the factory. Now, I know that sounds silly, but on the back, I'm going to read the sentence. It says, built by World Musical Instrument Corporation, Ltd., Korea, under exclusive license for Paul Reed Smith guitars. But it doesn't say Paul Reed Smith guitars. It says PRS guitars. Is that a big deal? No. It's just most people don't understand that like ESP to LTD, Gibson to Epiphone, and Fender to Squier, this is Paul Reed Smith to PRS. PRS is this term used for an SE. Now, is that a big deal? Absolutely not, but it is something to be aware of. Nowhere on this guitar does it say Paul Reed Smith. It just says PRS. But he takes the great pains to make the guitar as good as he can in America, and he took great pains to pick the factory that he uses for his Korean line. Now, keep in mind the new SE Standard, which is a lower price version of this version, is now made in Indonesia, and that's a different thing. But we're talking SEs. We're talking 15 years of Korean guitars. So let's talk Korean guitars. Okay, a couple things I want to talk about when it comes to Korean guitars. Let's start with this. First of all, Korean guitars to me are the new Japanese guitars. I think they make the best guitars that are not made in the USA. I like American-made guitars. Obviously, I own a lot of them, so I'm not going to say anything opposite than that. I like Japanese guitars because I own those too. But I will tell you this, in 1992, I went to a music store and I bought myself an Ibanez RG770 made in Japan for $700. This guitar is $700 now, which is funny to me. So obviously with inflation, this would be cheaper than that Japanese guitar I bought in 1992. By the way, they were asking $1,000. I had to get them down to $700. This guitar is better. This guitar is better because I can prove it. Here's why. That guitar had a basswood body. That guitar had a maple neck, but it was bolted on. This guitar has a mahogany body and a set neck. It's a more expensive process to do. The fit and finish on this guitar is just as good, if not better, than that American guitar, or sorry, that Japanese Ibanez. But also, this guitar sounds better. Now, you could say that's a bold statement, but here's why. I know it sounds better because I still have that Ibanez. I just play it. In fact, I have a bunch of them, Ibanez Japanese guitars, and they're great. They're awesome. But this guitar definitely has a better sound. My Paul Reed Smith SE 7-string sounds better than my Ibanez RG 7-string. It just does. Now, when I say better, obviously I like those guitars because all guitars have different sounds, but we're talking about, just a variety of, warmth and tone. These guitars just have more going on. In fact, like I said, so I've said this in the store, I will say it officially on the line, I think Korea puts out a better guitar now than Japanese does. Now, I don't mean Japanese quality's gone down, I just think if you look at the Korean guitars, they're just the Schecters and these PRSs and all those other Korean guitars are just, the Gretches are just fantastic. There's just nothing to hate about those guitars. So, the question is, then why is there such a big difference? Well, we already know because we've addressed it in so many videos before. Obviously, American labor is more expensive, but more importantly, you can see that these guitars, every detail, no expense is spared when it comes to Paul Reed Smith. Now, so you understand, this is where I stand on this issue, like all issues. Both guitars are fantastic. I could own either one and be happy for the rest of my life, without a doubt. I choose the American PRS over the SEs because I own an SE, but I only own one. I mostly own Americans, and the reason I chose them is because of the fascination I have with Paul Reed Smith himself and his quest for like this ultimate quality guitar. Now, a lot of people will call the the American line a cork sniffer guitar. In other words, made for doctors and lawyers, and there's no real reason to, it's just for people who like pretty guitars. That could be true. I don't know if I'm drinking too much of the Kool-Aid, but what I will tell you is this. I look at his guitars like when you go to a fine restaurant and they drizzle the sauce on the plate and they put the garnish on there. That doesn't make the meal taste better, but it shows that if that's the attention they take to making that plate look that good, what was the attention that they took to making the plate taste so good? Same with Paul Reed Smith. If this is the detail that he'll go to just on how the guitar looks, obviously the inside is got just as much going on as the outside. So it's just a quality guitar all around. You could not be unhappy with either guitar, as always. That is the downfall. So the question is, why should you pay $3,300 for a guitar over $600 or $700 guitars? You shouldn't. No one can come up with a logical reason why, other than just if you want one, you get one. And if you want the other, you get the other. Again, I always tell people, to me, it's not a question of should you buy a $3,000 guitar or a $700 guitar. The question is, should you buy a bunch of $700 guitars or one $3,000 guitar? That's where everybody has to decide where they're at. All right, guys. Thank you for letting me do this video. I really like talking about Paul Reed Smith, and these guitars are fantastic. And we'll do some sound samples, and then we'll end the video. probably asking, what about the S2s, which stands for Stevensville 2 guitars? They're made in the USA, and they're kind of like they're kind of different than the core American PRS guitars. I've decided to exclude them from this video. We're going to do just core to SE. The reason is because I think that needs to be a totally different video if we do talk about that, because that's a newer product and different. So, thank you as always for your time, and as always, know your gear.